Welcome to the second podcast of the Latino Loud, Get Out the Vote campaign. We're very excited to have some younger voices here, some younger minds, some younger views, as we promised, because it's all about getting all of us out to vote in this very important election. So we're interested to hear what everybody has to say. We're going to talk today about the issues. We're going to be talking about the website, why people vote, why perhaps people aren't voting, what do we need to get them to vote, and just a general conversation about Latino Loud and younger viewpoints when it comes to politics. So we'll go around the desk here and just introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Mayra Vasquez-Chavez. I am a media relations manager, and I am 25 years old.
Hi, my name is Andy Rivera. I am a research analyst and project manager at Chicanos por la Causa, and I'm 29 years old.
Hi, my name is Fatima Alshamari. I am a communications specialist at Chicanos por la Causa, and I am 23 years old.
Latino Loud! Brought to you by Cisa Vota, Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund. All right, so we're all in our 20s, but we're all at Chicanos por la Causa. And I think this is a nice sampling of who we are. Sometimes we look at the organization not fully understanding, but the truth is a lot of young people work at CPLC, and obviously a lot of Latinos, Latinas as well. In fact, about 80% of our workforce are Latinas. And we do have our first CEO, who is a Latina, our first Latina, Alicia Nunez. She was on our last show. So we're very proud of the progress and that we're moving forward. So, this is the world we live in. This is who we serve, and this is who we are. So I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you so much for taking time, your busy schedules, to talk about things, elections, because it's so important. And now everything is kind of bubbling to the top. There's a sense of urgency. So we're very proud of our website, latinoloud.vote. We're very proud where it is now, and we're very proud what it's going to become. These podcasts are going to be stationed on our website, but also we're going to slice and dice this and put this across social media and digital media, but always coming back to our website, latinoloud.vote, because you can get so much information there on what are the offices that are up, what are the propositions, what are the issues, what's some important things I should know about issues, how do I vote, what are cutoff dates for deadlines of mailing in ballots, when do ballots come in, all this pertinent information when it comes to the election. You can go there and get nonpartisan, unbiased information when it comes to voting. And that's what's important. I think we need some place where we can all go and understand. And interesting about the videos, there's going to be a lot more videos coming up here in the next few weeks, but some of those we want them to come from younger people as well. So younger Latinos to give us their videos. We'll put them on there. Talk about the issues. Say what you have to say. Be Latino loud, be Latino proud, and let's hear what you have to say. And that's where we are today. So I guess the first question I'm going to throw out here is Latino Loud. And the logo that we have here with the rather, some people find it provocative, but the mouth that's opening up, Latino Loud, that has something to say. This was chosen by young people that we did in a focus group 2 years ago when we first launched Latino Loud. And it resonated with young people. Older people, not as much, but the young people. And I think part of it was because they feel like young people have something to say and they want to be heard. And they just don't want to be told what to do, perhaps, or someone telling them what's what. They say, wait a minute, we have something to say. And they want to say it, and they want to say it loud. So that's why we went with the logo. Younger people like it. Even younger kids like it. The T-shirts we give out for young kids that say future voter on it. But I don't know. What do you think of the logo? What do you think of the name? And what does it mean to you? Mayra, we'll start with you.
I definitely think that it does say something to be unapologetic and authentic, just with the loudness of it. It resonates with me. I think if it was something that was more like corporate-y, I wouldn't pay much attention to it. But I think the fact that it does look kind of risky and bold, it does draw attention to what is that, whether it's on a shirt or water bottle or on any merchandise, it kind of just draws attention to what are you saying and what is being said and why is it being said loudly.
Yeah. Andy, what are your thoughts?
I think it's kind of if the survey group was young people, I definitely think that it showcases at least what I've seen from like my younger cousins and some of my mentees. They're a lot more outspoken and I'd say willing to protest maybe inequities that they see. And so I think that kind of highlights that willingness to, I guess, shout out and hold people accountable, which I think is a highlight of this next generation.
Yeah. As for me, I think I'll just piggyback off what they said. And I like that it's really colorful. It makes it show that, like, make it look bold and encourage people to be expressive about how they feel and what they want to see, like, to be heard. But.
Yeah, and to be heard, that's so important. And that's what this election is all about, is to be heard. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's Latino Loud, so you can be heard loud and clear. But of course, to be heard, we really have to speak up at the ballot box. So that's what we keep saying, your voice is your vote. And that's going to make the big difference. And there has been a challenge to get Latinos in general to vote in the proportionate numbers that non-Latino community does. So, and it goes down towards younger Latinos too, but it's across the board. It doesn't matter if you're Latino or not. Younger people do not vote in the large numbers that they should or could. So part of what we're going to talk about today is perhaps some theories on why younger people aren't voting on the higher numbers, and perhaps what we need to do to get more younger people involved. Now, everybody here works for Chicanos por la Causa, but we all do different things. Some of us are more plugged into the elections right now than others, but that's what the community is too. Some people have been following politics for the last, since the last election, and they've been plugged in every day. Others not so much. Some are just starting to plug in now. It kind of depends. So our major push actually is from now towards the election, and even especially after Labor Day, because that's when people that aren't plugged in necessarily to politics, they start taking a greater interest. So everybody's in a different point right now. Just curious where you would list yourself in terms of informed. I know, a lot of us are informed different ways. Some of us are plugging in now, but where do you feel like you are now in terms of being informed? Are you 1 to 5? 1 would be not plugged in yet, but getting plugged in, and then 5 been plugged in, totally plugged in. Where would you rate yourself, and where would you rate your peers?
I think personally for me, I would be at a 3. I think when it comes to like the more major mainstream stuff, like in terms of like the presidential election and some of the bills that are going to be in Arizona's ballot. But again, if someone were to like ask me like who's running for, like your, I don't know, like judges or other ballots, like I know I know it's not called HCR 2016 anymore, but like I know that
Proposition
one.
314.
Yeah, Proposition 314. Like I know that one is, but I don't know what other ones are also on the ballot.
I would say about maybe 3.5 for me. Kind of in the same.
I like decimals.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to bring the decimals out here. Math stats guy. I like what Mayra said about how if like I feel like I know the major issues, I feel like I have a stance on them. I feel like I've picked out a few issues that are important to me and that I feel like are impactful to the Latino community. But again, if someone were to ask me like who's running for this position and why do you support them, I would be probably a little lax for that. That I do, however, I am of the mindset that if you want to get involved in politics, get more involved in local politics because they will make a better impact to your community. So I need to, I guess, to act on my own words.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said about focusing on the local politics before like looking at the bigger picture, because for me, I just graduated last year from college, from ASU. So I feel like I'm still settling into the adult life, which is getting a full-time job and learning how to navigate through that. Just recently graduating from college. So I like the idea of just focusing locally because it can be really frustrating for me. Even though I've been eligible to vote since I was 18, I feel like because of the busyness of my life, I haven't really learned how to educate myself in a easier way with all the media, it can become overwhelming. So I feel like I was at a 3, but since Mayra said she's at a 3, I think I'm gonna go down to a 2, because if that's what I think what you're at like at least a 5.
No.
So, but if she says she's at a 3, I know I'm a little bit behind her, so I'll say a 2. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, and all that's fine, and that's the whole idea, is that it's a process of voting, and even if you study a lot of the issues and the candidates, and you go to vote and you feel like you're an informed voter, I guarantee you the next election, you'll be surprised at how much you didn't know the last time you voted. It's, I've been voting forever, and I still learn every election more about the election process, more about the candidates, how politics are run. And you're right, and we are so bombarded by so much information now. And that's why we did the LatinoLoud.vote website, is because we wanted a site where people could go and feel like, okay, this is where I'm at, whether you be a 1 or a 5, whether you be a Democrat or Republican or independent, whether you're just, this is your first time you voted or first time in a long time, or you're just kind of plugging in, that information is going to help you. So we wanted that one place that you could go and learn. And plus we wanted a website which is going to be evolving in real time. So, future podcasts may be talking about whatever the hot issue is coming up. But, it's a maturation process. Many Latinos, it's not necessarily in the way we were raised. Perhaps our parents didn't vote, or one or both parents didn't vote. Maybe 1 or 2 parents perhaps were not documented, so they could not vote. But the point is that we're trying to get generational change. So if we can get people plugged in and voting, and we can get them voting in this election, we're trying to make sure they vote in the next election. And then as they raise families, their kids will see them voting and realize that voting's important. So it's similar like to college. I was the first person in my family out of 7 kids. They waited till number 7. Here I am, to go to college. And before that, my mother and father hadn't gone to college. In fact, they didn't finish high school. So there's a maturation process of our community as well. So we need to learn the importance of voting. It needs to start becoming in our habit, becomes an expectation, is what we're hoping to do. And as we learn all this is important, it's good. But the important thing is to know is that you don't have to fill out the entire ballot. So some people, when you open it, it's going to be this big, long ballot. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it looks like a tax form, and you're going to freak out, right? It's like, you don't have to. You don't have to vote for everything. You don't have to vote for all the judges if you don't want to. If you don't know about it, you can skip it. If you just want to vote on the propositions, go to the very bottom of the ballot, because that's where they are. Vote on those first if you want. Then go back up to the top, because you know who's running for president. We all do. However the ballot works for you. We do recommend, though, that you request a mail ballot, because then it goes to your house. You get all the time in the world you want to fill it out on your own time. You don't have to do it in one setting. You can do it across several days, and then you just mail it in. You sign it, you date it, you put your phone number on there, and that phone number is just in case there's a question about your ballot, they'll call you. And that's the only reason that phone number is used. You don't even take a stamp. But what's interesting is that younger people, and I'll let you talk in just a minute, but younger people, snail mail isn't something that they grew up with either. So it's kind of foreign to a lot of people, like, mailing, I have to lick an envelope, it's this other thing. But it is what it is. And unfortunately, we're not at the point, and I hope we do someday, where you can vote on your phone. You could do everything else on your phone. You can buy anything you want, communicate, but you can't do the vote. The security is there. They can do it. Part of the reason you have to wonder is do they not want younger people to vote? I don't know, but we could do that. So yeah, wherever you are in the process of voting and understanding voting or whatever, plug yourself in. You can plug yourself in late. You can plug yourself, wherever you want to. That's what this website is all about. Interesting where you get most of your information. And Fatima, we'll start with you. Where are you hearing most of your information about voting or about issues? And what sources do you trust the most?
From my personal experience, the last time that I voted was for a specific a proposition, and I then learned that I didn't have to fill everything out. So I try to educate myself based on the pamphlet that was given to me along with it. And I remember having to like Google a lot of the terms because a lot of the terms were not very like to my level based off like what I read every day. So I remember researching that and then voting for that and then getting as much information I could understand from the pamphlet. And based on what I understood, I felt comfortable with voting. Whatever I didn't understand, I didn't vote, honestly. But then I remember that one of the things that I voted on actually ended up passing, and it made me feel really proud to have been a part of it. So that's one of like my personal experiences with it.
Yeah. So I'd say the majority of my information comes from a heap of different news sources, a lot of them international and often stat-based like fact-check websites. One of the things I love is that you can mess around with narratives, rhetorics, you can mess around with stories and involve numbers, but once you involve like a raw data sheet or like a raw policy sheet or something, like you can't lie. You cannot mess that up. Me being a numbers stats guy, that is my language. So that. But I also engage in a lot of debate and dialogue with a lot of kind of my friends too. It's funny. As much as I say like, oh my God, I want to escape from politics, I find myself almost every other evening or so like discussing politics with them. Whether it be like over Discord, FaceTime. Some people I know use like Zoom or Skype or whatever you're using. But I think it's a lot of that, and I do really appreciate that, where it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where I know you don't always want to stay in your bubble when you say like, oh, I get my information from my friends, but I like to think that my friends are very at least have their I can notice their biases, I can notice when they're unbiased, and I feel I trust them to deliver information, and if I have to check it myself, I can, and I feel like I've created a safe space of being able to share knowledge, I think.
And for me, I know it can be a source of like a lot of misinformation, but I do get a lot of my information in the news and discourse and debate from social media. Like I love Twitter, I love Instagram, and I know that like Fatima was saying, like a lot of times the information is really hard to Google and understand. And I remember in like the last midterm, what was really helpful to me was one of my friends had shared like, it was basically like a guide or a breakdown. It was like an infographic on what was on the ballot. And, it kind of gave quick bullet points and quick bios on everyone who was on the ballot. And to me, that information was really helpful to breaking it down. That way I feel like I'm not voting blindly. And again, I know that there is just that big risk of misinformation on social media, but I also do think that is where I spend a majority of my free time. And that is just where I see it. So I know the risk, but I also know that there are good sources out there. So yeah, I would say social media has been a really helpful, at least to me, has been helpful to me.
How much are you influenced by advertising? I mean, we're seeing a ton of advertising. You're seeing probably a lot of digital ads as well. Not just on TV, but streaming even. I mean, where you can't avoid political ads. It seems like. How much are you influenced by political ads? And how much are you influenced by your friends? And how much do you think you influence friends by your perhaps political point of view or knowledge about, say, a certain proposition or issue? We'll go with you, Andy. We'll start with you first.
I would say in terms of advertising, I think when I was younger, and I think when I was more falling to like the political rhetoric, because I definitely had that phase of like, you see one political ad and you'd watch it, get upset and like, oh my God, let me type 3 things on social media and blah, 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 blah. It's not important or anything, but I think now I've kind of hit a point in my life where I don't really like care for advertisements. I don't care for corporate sponsors. I don't care for corporate message. It's all money at the end of the day. So what gets me excited is kind of, like I said, policy, data, and kind of like plans, bullet points, as Mayra said. And I like to think as kind of that's my job. That's what I dedicate my career to, is being able to translate data into the actual stories. We use a term on my team called the stories behind the data, or the stories in the data. I like to think that I do a pretty good job of translating that for my friends. I like to think that I've built up a diverse group of friends that even when I'm translating that info and everything, they can take it in, they can go research counterpoints, they can challenge each other. Like I said, I think it's healthy dynamic.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if a political ad could persuade me to go a different way, just because I feel like a lot of the things that are on the election and are on the ballot and the issues that are being discussed are just fundamental things. Like, I'm not going to change my opinion on something as important as like abortion or immigration based on like a 30-second ad. And then when it comes to being influenced with my friends, I do think that is maybe a bigger factor because, you know, they are my friends. I do look up to them. I hope that they look up to me in the same way. And when it comes to things, I think when we discuss things related to politics, I feel like it's more of an educational conversation of like, oh, I didn't know that, or here's how this would impact, you know, XYZ.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I do get a majority of information from my friends as well. And I do think it influences me in a way, but I still, at the end of the day, like to do my own research, to make my own opinion and see how a specific proposition would affect me, but not only me, but my community.
Now, without naming candidates, because we are nonpartisan, and you know, we should all, you know, respect that. But I'm curious, how much do you think candidates are talking to you as a younger voter? Do you feel like they're talking to you? Do you feel like they represent you? Do you feel a connection? Is it where you want it to be?
So just from the political landscape that like I've grown up in, I feel like I've grown to be like hopeless and disillusioned with it. Just because when I see these politicians speaking, I don't hear the actions or I don't hear the specific policies in line. I think I just hear a lot of, you know, like vote for me because I'll do this, but then the action never follows. So yeah, I think that's kind of one thing that like makes me feel like I'm not being spoken to. And also I just feel like as a younger, like growing up here and everything like that, it is kind of hard to feel like you're being taken seriously when you're not being represented by the government. It's a lot of old white guys. And, you know, it feels very hard for younger people to run for these positions and also be elected. So that's another reason too why I just don't see that representation or feel spoken to.
I completely agree with just the endless cycle of rhetoric. One of the first elections I actually participated in was the DNC primary of Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. I remember like just being heartbroken as a young voter because I remember at one point Bernie actually had more popular votes than Hillary, and yet Hillary still had won like the electoral votes. Being like a left-leaning person or a left-leaning individual, I think that kind of really like opened my eyes to the endless cycle of rhetoric. The one thing I will say is continuing to be left-leaning. I feel like one of the candidates stepping down and a new candidate stepping in, I feel like the DNC at least was willing to at least listen. Now, you can say, is it for money purposes? Is it for political reasons? Blah, 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 blah. But to me, that was at least like, okay, we were willing to not run down this one path because we saw the outcome. We're actually willing to change ship. So I think like kind of that's like the one glimpse on the horizon that I'm looking at right now in terms of a young voter who's like kind of perspective has changed, but it's still, like I said, the second someone in a campaign speech starts talking rhetoric, I just roll my eyes and kind of just turn off the channel. Like, give me bullet points, give me policy, give me stuff that works, and you'll have earned my vote.
I feel like for me, I don't feel like we're their main focus because I don't feel like we're the main vote because I feel like we lack the resources, at least from my personal experience. I feel like we lack the resources to make an educated decision. And so sometimes it could be overwhelming. And I think a lot of people my age, it might just be too overwhelming where they're like, okay, I'm just not going to vote at all.
But you mentioned issues, and they mentioned issues, and issues are important. And on the LatinoLoud.vote website, there are issues there, which in discussions and focus groups with younger voters, certain issues resonate with younger voters more than older voters, and that makes sense, right? People are in different spots in their life process. For instance, climate change is so important to younger people, more important than even to older people. And I don't know if that's older people think they're just going to run out the clock and they'll be fine. Here's the world. Good luck with it. Better luck than we had, or what? But that's an important issue. Another issue would be LGBTQ plus is a different issue. It resonates differently with younger voters. And then of course you've got the reproductive freedom and rights and abortion access, so forth. Younger women today have less rights than their mother did or their grandmother. I mean, so there's also something that younger people look at it differently. So you talk about housing. Well, what does that mean? It means something different to different generations. My generation, I've been fortunate enough where I'm able to buy a house. But at the same time, I recognize if I were younger, I don't think I'd be saying that same thing, right? So the dynamics have changed. Everything has changed. Education is different. When I first went to college, I was able to put myself through school, worked a job, put myself through school. I wouldn't be able to do that today. There's no way. And student debt, how crippling that can be. So things have changed. So things that my generation experienced and are going through, and my perspective and our perspective is it's very personal in our bubble. Whereas for you guys experienced in a different time, and you guys certainly have more longevity than I do, more good years ahead of you, hopefully, right, than I do, right? I mean, I'm looking more rearview mirror. You guys are looking more through the windshield of what's coming up ahead. So I'm curious, do those issues, and you could talk about any one of them or all of them, do they resonate differently, you think, with a younger generation than older? And definitely, does that affect perhaps how you vote and how you get your friends and family to vote?
Yeah, those issues definitely resonate with me. I think if I even had to add another one, would be gun control. I think growing up, in the post 9/11 world, post Great Recession, there was just all these, terrible things happening. I saw my friends, their families were going through really hard economic times. And then also when it comes to being young and figuring out your identity and who you are. So that's why I think it is important to me and at least my group of friends and maybe other young voters too, of I just think our core beliefs come down to we just want people to be able to live a good life. So I think that's why maybe things like climate change are so important, because it's we want to make sure that not only do we have a planet to live on, but our grandchildren's grandchildren and so forth. There's only one Earth. Same thing with abortion. Why does, I don't know how to say this, but yeah, if you don't want one, don't get one. Why does it matter if a woman chooses to get one because they need it? I think making abortion more restrictive doesn't get rid of abortion, and it gets rid of safe abortion. LGBTQ plus issues, people should be able to live and express how they want to be, whether it is their sexuality or their pronouns. It shouldn't be something that the government has any say in my opinion, because that's how they want to live. And yeah, I just think it goes back down to wanting everyone just to have a good life.
I definitely agree. I think that I feel my friends group shares that same sentiment, where it's within our little friends chats, amongst all the funny memes and dog and cat videos we send to each other, it's flooded with oh, look at this bill that's going to pass, or this law that's going to pass, or this college is cracking down on student protesters this way, or this student tuition is going to get raised in this state. And I think it's really that's definitely kind of the common theme, I think, with kind of our groups, is kind of just highlighting which inequity or inequality, societal inequality are we going to get upset about this week, and kind of like talk about it, I guess, so we're not all just drowning. But I think in terms of, and yeah, I know, so I'll just leave it at that, actually. Yeah.
I feel like all the issues do pull some heartstrings for me, because I feel like I know people from or who have dealt or are dealing with the current issues, biggest issues right now. So I feel like all of them resonate with me in some way, and they are going to be, at least for me, I think they are going to be considered when I vote, for sure.
I actually had a little fun, because you were talking about access to abortion as being like a key issue or in topic in your friends group. So one of the things I love data, love research in Texas, actually, if you guys don't know, viewers, in Texas in 2022, they actually published that infant mortality rates in Texas went up by 13%. Infant mortality rates in regards to birth defects went up by 26%. So if the narrative to restrict access to abortion has been, oh, it's going to save more lives, okay, well, the data isn't adding up to that. So what are you going to do? Where do we go from here? And I have a feeling we're going to start seeing those same data numbers in a lot of these other restrictive states that have passed similar laws. And I just, as a data stats math guy, I do not want Arizona to go down that same pathway.
And these are issues, I take it, that you talk amongst your friends when you're TikToking, Instagramming, and Facebooking. None of you guys Facebook, right? Nobody does Facebook. I guess I still do. But, whatever it may be, texting, so forth. Because I have a theory, and you guys help me see if I'm on base or off base. But it's not that younger people are not engaged, because I believe they are. I believe they talk and they're aware, and they talk mostly on here. It's just, how do we translate the discussion that's taking place in their phone into actually casting a ballot? That's the challenge. Do you agree with that statement, or do you think a lot of younger people, your friends or peers, are unplugged? And a compound question, and if they are unplugged, how do we plug them in? Who wants to start that difficult question?
I guess we'll start it. I do have friends that either don't discuss politics with me, and friends in general. And I think I also have friends that just don't vote as well. Now, when I've asked them, because I remember I've pressed them on this before, like why, why, blah, 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 and I've given all the reasons why, it's usually a common core of I like kind of what you highlighted earlier, Ms. Fatima, was information overload, and also just like a toxic kind of just rhetoric being shown over and over again. And maybe like a kind of a combination on the two kind of just creates a really bad environment for people. And I kind of like how you talked about your first experience voting was, opening up a ballot sheet and being like, I only really know about one of these propositions. I think every young voter can relate to that, especially when it comes to legal jargon, which is purposely written in ballots to confuse voters. So I think it's definitely a system that's built to not incur change very progressively. I'll say that. I'll use that choice of words.
Yeah, I feel like, at least with my friend group, we do talk about it, because I think when people say that they're not into politics or they don't get involved in politics, I think that it doesn't make sense, because so much of your daily life is impacted by politics. Mm-hmm. So at least from my personal experience, my friends and I have always been engaged in those discussions and those issues, just because it's the world around us. Again, I think I brought up gun control a lot, but for this example, we were just kids when Sandy Hook happened, and we just could not, we were scared and we couldn't understand it, and why it felt like it was happening every year, mass shooting after mass shooting. So again, with that being, again, just a topic that is discussed a lot, and just also being able to see, like, you know, how this topic of gun control and, like, you know, kids dying, people dying so much to gun violence just be reduced down to thoughts and prayers, and then no action after, I think is what pushes us to still be engaged and still have those discussions, even though, you know, it's not, yeah, I don't know. I think it just still pushes us to have those discussions, because you can't really be disengaged from politics. You're still going to be impacted regardless of what happens. Regardless if you vote or not, you're still going to be impacted.
And is there a way to get your friends more involved through the issues, through discussions? Or do you try to make that happen?
I feel like I do put in some effort by like asking my friends if they voted, and also sharing it on social media when I vote. I'm trying to think of other ways that I've engaged with my friends. But yeah, I think just asking them about it and posting about it, being sharing that experience of like, oh, I voted.
Now, since we're trying to reach younger Latino voters, and I guess this is a question that, and it means something different to everyone. And obviously our friends and sometimes even our family are not necessarily Latinos. We're friends and family with everybody, right? Right. But I'm curious, what does it mean to you to be Latino, Latina, Latinx? Does it mean something special in terms of who you are, where you come from, and how it relates to politics and voting? Fatima, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Like what it means to be Latina?
Yeah, what does it mean to you to be Latina? What does that mean as far in terms of how you look at the world, where you come from, and how it relates to voting and elections and government?
For me, what it means to be Latina, I think it's more than that. I think being Latina is also I'm the first generation of my family to go to college and be able to have access to certain things that my parents didn't have access to growing up, and also being the first one in my family to be able to vote. And so with that, it does feel like a big responsibility for me to vote and educate myself. But then again, sometimes it feels like overwhelming, kind of like when relating it to like kind of like work, when you're in a meeting and then you kind of feel at the end of the meeting, you're like, okay, this could have been shared in like an email or like some bullet points. So that's kind of how I feel. But yeah.
But in terms of, gosh, I think what it means to be Latino for me, I would say, I got like, I was trying to think of words, like kind of what words are immediately coming to mind. And I think like, you know, community unity, like respect, whether that's respect for your elders or respect for like even respect for your youngers too, as we're now seeing that even, you know, young people and younger generations clearly have a voice and are more than capable of using it. You know, culture, you know, we have so much culture, whether it's you want to claim to be Hispanic, Chicano, Latin, I'll even say South American, because, hey, you know, we're all going to get grouped together one way or another, right? And I think, you know, you want to throw in like tradition and pride there as well. That's one thing I can definitely say is you go to any Latino family, South American family, Chicano family, whatever, you'll see pride from where they came from, where their family came from, how they got here. And so I really kind of like to bounce that off kind of Fatima's point is that regardless of how hard it is, you know, we, you know, stand on the shoulders of people that paved the way for us to get here. And I think we owe it to them to use our voices.
Yeah, I 100% agree. For me, I think that being Latina is just so important and so central to my identity and like everything that I do and everything that I like. And just it all falls back to this, you know, important aspect of my identity because it is so central and so key. And similarly, yeah, like I 100% agree when it's like I wasn't the first person in my family to be able to vote, but I was one of the first. Like, I remember when my siblings became citizens and they were filling out their own ballots and sending that in, I was still a little kid and I saw that. and the level of like responsibility that I kind of had just naturally, you know, being a citizen where they went through the process. I think there's so much sacrifice and resilience, like with everything that my mom did and, you know, did for us. And she actually just became a citizen really recently. So this is going to be her first presidential election to be able to vote in. And it's just, again, for me, I think it is that aspect of like the sacrifice, the resiliency, and the responsibility to be able to vote for the family members that couldn't do it before, can't do it now, just because of their own situation. And again, with the community and just taking care of each other, I think is such a big central core thing as well.
You know, among the many great things that Chicanos por la Causa does, and we do everything from early childhood development all the way to senior housing and everything in between, health and human services. We do, we do affordable housing. We do a lot of things in the education sphere. We have for a long time. We do a lot with economic development. We do a lot with, building job opportunities. I mean, you name it, we do it. But one of the things we're really founded in was on education. In 1969, and you guys know the story, but in 1969, there was a movement, Chicano movement, and part of what we did here in Phoenix, it wasn't me because I'm from Flagstaff, but in 1969, here in Phoenix, there were walkouts of schools because of the inequities that were taking place here in Phoenix. And that's how Chicanos por la Causa was founded. So we've never turned away from that because there still are inequities across the board, and including in education, as we know, poor school districts, for instance, by zip code, and access to higher education and so forth. Well, one of the great things that we do, among many things we do well, is our scholars, our college scholarships for the Latino community, and we're very proud of our scholars. And off camera, and I'm hoping he'll come right behind Fatima. At least show yourself to the camera real quick. Tony Moya. There he is. Tony today. He's a great asset to CPLC. He's a former board chairman, very much involved in the Latino Loud and our advocacy. He's a valuable team member, one of my favorite people in the world, colleagues. But today he was addressing our scholars, our new CPLC scholars, and he was addressing them, telling them about the importance of voting, the importance of getting involved, and they needed to hear that. And Tony, I'm sure you reached some people that had not yet registered, right? He's nodding his head yes. And you got people committing to register, yes. I mean, this is what it takes. It takes this to activate people. They have to hear from us. So Tony was an ambassador. Do you see yourself in that same role of being an ambassador to get your friends and your family and your colleagues to register to vote and engaged in this election? I mean, it's that important, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think to be an ambassador, there's just a lot of different ways to be able to do it. I think just even something as quick as like a text just to be like, hey, don't forget to vote today, or like, hey, did you vote today? I know that, again, if you're mailing in ballots, just give people that deadline, like, oh, I'm dropping off my ballot, today's the deadline, or stay in line if you're still in line, or what's the thing, like you can stay in line until you cast your vote. Yeah,
as long as you're in line. It doesn't matter if it's past the deadline, 7 p.m. It doesn't matter how long you're in line. If you're in line before the polls close, you get to cast your vote. Doesn't matter how long it takes. But again, I think it does benefit to vote by mail. We really recommend that because it's so much easier, and you don't have to worry about waiting in line. You don't have to worry about missing work or, gee, was that today? And now I'm clear across town. No, you can take your time, mail it in. But there are important deadlines. In Arizona, you have to register 29 days before the general election. So that would be October 7. Is that correct, Tony? Is the deadline to make sure you're registered to vote. So, everyone thinks of November elections. Well, if you ain't registered by October 7, the November election ain't gonna help you any. A lot of contractions there. I just did. But so it's the idea, these important deadlines, like you say, texting your friend saying, hey, you need to register, you dude or dudette, or whatever you guys call each other. You don't call each other dudette, do you? Yeah, just laughing.
Or they can find out those important dates at Latino Now.
That's right. Tony points out all those important dates are right there at our top of our webpage. LatinoLoud.vote. I mean, so you know those important dates. They're all right there for everyone. And we'll keep reminding you, but you need to register today. Just register today. Do yourself a favor. Register today. Get your friends to register today. But talking about the ambassadors, again, you're an ambassador, right? So how do you, Mr. Ambassador, how do you present yourself and how do you get others plugged into our electoral system?
I think over a lot of learning from this when I first started getting into politics, was really hot-headed, like still in college. Definitely was just, like I said, I would scroll social media, see whatever issue was currently, and then freak out about it with my friends. I think now I just want to be as like concise and just informative as I can be. So kind of like pulling off of Mayra's playbook, I kind of just share. I usually like share a little reminder like, hey guys, it's a deadline to vote. Just make sure you guys vote today. I'll usually spam them with a sticker of like I voted or something. And then I'll usually send a little kind of infograph, kind of like what Mayra was talking about, how they're usually release most unbiased or not. You can find most unbiased or nonpartisan kind of summaries of like what the different issues are. I want to say it was ABC 15 that did it, or MSNBC did it this past election cycle for our midterms. But even then, like I said, it's just kind of sharing those little infos just so my friends can be aware of it and they don't have to kind of open up the legal jargon and just kind of be like, oh, dude, I don't have time for this. I got to go pick up my kids. Blah, 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 blah. No. And it's like, well, come on, dude, like actually be informed about it. So,
I feel like I have been an ambassador in past elections, but I feel like with this one, or sometimes like through the seasons of life, it can become difficult. And so I feel like there is room of improvement that I can try to gap to become a better ambassador, because it is something I care about and want my friends to care about and promote. So I think I will be taking some of their tips with looking up infographics that have eliminated all that jargon that I don't need, all that fluff, and just make it more easier for me to understand what I'm voting on and what really matters to me.
And you know where you can go for information, right?
Yeah.
Is it LatinoLoud.com?
Latino.
LatinoLoud.vote.
No,
.vote.
.vote. There we
so
go.
The vote is in there because that's so key. LatinoLoud.vote. So that's where you can go to get the information you need. That's where you can send your friends to register to vote. Takes about 4 minutes, and you can register to vote here in Arizona. Nevada's different. Nevada is same day registration. I wish we had that in Arizona because you want to register to vote that day. The day you show up to vote on general election day, you can register and vote on the same day. I mean, that's democracy in my viewpoint. That 29-day thing here, and this is Joe Garcia speaking, the individual, it's counterproductive. We want as many people voting as possible, not eliminating people because they didn't realize that this kind of quirky law that we have. Yeah. So that's why we're sending everyone we can early on to register to vote before October 7th, because that's the cutoff here in Arizona. And the homework assignment, I guess you guys thought you were out of college, right? Ugh. Everyone thought, oh, no more homework. No, here's some more homework, right? I'd like a pledge from each of you that you will get at least one person, that's a C, 2 people, that's a B. 3 people is an A plus, but at least one person in your circle of friends to register to vote sometime in the next week. I'll give you a week. Yeah. That's a fair amount of time.
Okay.
So a pledge. Can I get a pledge?
Yes, I pledge.
I will.
I can pledge as well.
See, these are great ambassadors. These are great guests. It was really informative. I learned a lot hearing from you guys, and I'm glad that's what it comes down to. Is that as an older person, you need to listen more. At the same time, you need to feel comfortable to speak up more. And not just among your friends, but to us, because we need to hear. Yeah. We learn. We can't see through your eyes because we already saw through our eyes when we were your age. The world was different then. But that's what our brain retains, is that snapshot of that's what the world is. Well, that is not the world any longer. And the world we live in today is very different as an older person than the world you guys are navigating and maneuvering through today. So it's important that we have these discussions, I think, between generations. So we get a better understanding what's important to you. for instance, you brought up the gun control, right? Initially, we had that on an earlier version 2 years ago, the version of Latino Loud, and we didn't have it on this one. Well, you brought it up, and maybe we need to put that on. So is there another issue that you think, the ones that we talked about, is there one that we haven't talked about that you think we should look at and perhaps add to the website, and something that should have some information that you guys, your generation, really needs to know about and perhaps will draw people to the ballot box?
Go ahead, Mayra. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, again, I'm not sure if this is like on an upcoming bill or if it's like on the ballot even this year, but I know for me, education is such a big thing. I don't know why it's so controversial for kids to be able to have free lunches that can help them learn or have the resources that they need. Like, I know for me personally, it's really frustrating to think that like my taxpayer money is funding a war that I don't want to have funded, that I don't want to, I'd rather focus on, again, like helping students and having people have a good pathway to education. So I think that's like another key issue as well.
All right. I'm writing stuff down here.
I love
the magic pen.
I love that you highlighted education, because I remember the Red for Ed movement. I remember the marijuana legalization that was supposed to go funding toward education and ended up funding just our street infrastructure, which it was badly needed, but not at the cost of public education where it should have gone. Additionally, I want to say from what I've seen is also disability rights and access to services. I think we're seeing a lot more especially with this new generation of, like I said, acceptance and acknowledgement of inequalities, inequities, and acknowledgement of, there are people that, struggle just to live everyday basic life and have to rely sometimes on services. It's nowhere near their fault. It's the hand they were dealt with, but it's our responsibility as a society, if we want to continue, as Mayra said, to fund wars and tout the biggest guns around, we better be able to, protect our people here at home.
Yeah, and you meant our most vulnerable populations.
Exactly. Our most vulnerable populations. I love that. Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
For me, I guess I would go with Mayra as well on education, because I feel like education did disappoint me going through it, because I was an inner city kid. And so my school had to shut off certain programs that I really wanted to participate in because we didn't have the funding for it or the resources. So I wouldn't want other kids to go through that same experience.
Yeah, for sure. And I wrote these down, and this is good because this website's designed for you, not for me. So we'll build on it. This podcast will be on there as well. This discussion was so great, and I learned a lot, and look forward to continue more discussions. We're gonna have more people, and you guys may be invited back, because you may have some other things to say, right? You guys be all pros that you're coming back for the next podcast.
Of course.
So as we know, go to LatinoLoud.vote.
Vote.
LatinoLoud.vote for everything that we're talking about. And the last thing I'll ask for us to do as a panel, on the count of three, Dolores Huerta, a civil rights leader with Vasquez-Chavez, coined the phrase of "si se puede," right? We all know that, right? Si se puede, si se puede. We borrowed that, and ours is "si se vota," which is kind of the same thing if you think about it. That we're able to do it through the vote. Yes, yes, we can through the vote. So on the count of three, I just want to hear a "si se vota" on three. And Tony, you got to join in on this one. Tony's off camera, but he's right over there. On the count of three, the "si se vota," and Mr. Producer, you're welcome to join in too. The count of three, "si se vota." 1, 2, 3.
Si se vota.
Woo! Thank you, and we'll see you at the next podcast of Latino Loud. Thank you.